Do you believe that Fortune 5,000, I'm going to categorize that way, CEOs almost consistently are in a place of such scrutiny now with 24-hour media news cycles, every 90 days, accountability, quarter to quarter, that I've been, as you know, I grew up in entrepreneur land. I became an early investor in Facebook and Twitter and Tumblr and kind of rode that wave. And then I decided that I wanted to build the greatest communications infrastructure. Ironically, bleeds a little bit into your world. I became very aware of 3G and I said, you know, I'm going to build the reverse of 3G. Currently I'm building a communications marketing media company strictly to get into private equity because I believe that most private equity firms in the world are good at finding efficiencies when they buy a company. And what I want to do is create hyper consumer growth around brands that I think have the potential to be reformulated into contemporary channels. Right. And during that period of education over the last 11 years, working with some of the biggest companies in the world, the CEOs, the CMOs, board members, and spending a lot of time with activist investors, PE executives, hedge fund, VCs, I am fascinated by this stunning high percentage that do no anticipation for actual consumer behavior, live in Excel sheets, are math based on the back end, and are completely 90-day driven because they care about their own selfish short-term ROIs, which ultimately come to the demise of the business. Thoughts?
Well, obviously, when Jeff Bezos was building his company and he took it public, people made fun of him in the analyst world because they said, you don't care about earnings. You have no earnings. And every quarter he would have more revenue, but they'd say there's no earnings. And he would laugh at them behind their back because he knew he was building a great brand. And at the end, he had the last laugh. So the great entrepreneurs, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, they don't worry about earnings per share per quarter. They worry about building the franchise, and eventually the earnings will come. People who they hire sometimes who've been to BCG, Harvard Business School, Stanford Business School, Bain and so forth, they tend to focus much more on the more traditional things, worrying about earnings on each quarter and earnings, revenue growth and so forth. But the people that are the superstars of the business world tend to do things that are different than what you tend to learn at Harvard Business School, let's say.
Why is there not that I'm asking the typical Fortune 5,000 CEO to become one of those individuals? My bigger question is, why are they not showing some level of tendencies that look like that? I mean, you know, to me, it's almost like 100% in the other direction, complete obsession in hitting numbers in a 90-day window. I mean, I'm staggered by the lack of conversation of modern, what the consumer's doing on podcasting, or what's happening with last mile delivery or cloud kitchens, or there's just so many clear indicators of disruption every day because of the internet's scale. Yet, you know, finding some costs here or making ROI decisions on reports based on a Nielsen's. I mean, there is some silliness out there, David.
Well, in the early days of a company, they tend to focus on growth. And as you know, the buyout world is one where you took an existing company and tried to make it somewhat more efficient. The growth capital world is completely different, as is the venture capital world. So if you invest in growth capital, you tend to have entrepreneurs running those companies much more, who are focused on growing the revenue base and believe that the earnings will eventually come. But
David, what's the